The sound of laughter filled the dining room, bright and golden like the flickering lights wrapped around the Christmas tree. Glasses clinked, wrapping paper crinkled, and I sat there, at the far end of the long mahogany table, watching my family unwrap joy, as if I were a stranger in my own home. "Mom, look at what they got me!" My daughter Emily squealed, holding up a diamond bracelet that sparkled under the chandelier. "Isn't it stunning?" I smiled. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Across from me, my son Daniel and his wife Mia beamed proudly, their hands intertwined like a perfect picture. Every year, they hosted Christmas at my house. It was tradition. Except this year, something felt different. Something cold hung in the air. A silence that crept between laughter, settling deep inside my chest. Daniel had insisted on organizing everything. The dinner, the guest list, even the gifts. "You've done enough all these years, Mom," he'd said. "Let us take care of you for once." I should have known. The words sounded sweet, but there was a quiet edge to them. The table was lined with gifts, neatly labeled with glittering tags. One for my daughter, one for my grandkids, one for my sister, even for the neighbors who dropped by. But as the pile grew smaller, I noticed something. There wasn't one for me, not even a small box, not even a card. At first, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe mine was hidden somewhere, or they'd surprise me later. I laughed along with everyone, nodded as each gift drew gasps and applause. But the laughter soon became a blur, and my smile, my trained, motherly smile, began to tremble. When the last box was opened, Daniel stood up, tapping his glass with a spoon. "I just want to say," he began, "this year has been incredible. We've all come a long way. I'm so grateful for everyone here, for family, love, and success." He raised his glass toward Maya. "And most of all, for my amazing wife. You've made everything possible." Everyone clapped. Except me. Mia leaned into him, giggling, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then Daniel added, "And don't worry, next year will be even better. We've got big plans. Bigger than ever." He glanced my way for a fleeting second. A flicker of something cold passed behind his smile. I tried to speak, to joke, to say something to bridge the distance, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I sat there, invisible. Forgotten. My sister, Margaret, noticed. She leaned toward me, whispering under the clamor, "Did they forget to give you something?" I forced a laugh. "Of course not. I'm sure they'll get to it." But they didn't. Dinner came and went. Dishes clattered, champagne flowed, and still nothing. No gift. No acknowledgement. Not even a "thank you" for opening my home, the same home they decorated with lights, ornaments, and memories that all once belonged to me. I watched Daniel and Mia move through the crowd like hosts at a gala, proud and polished. Every now and then, Daniel would flash me that polite smile, the one that said, "You're old now, Mom. Sit quietly. Let us shine." It stung. When everyone finally began to leave, the air outside heavy with snow, I helped clear the plates, like I'd done every year. But this time, Daniel stopped me. "Mom, don't worry about that," he said casually, stacking dishes in the sink. "You should rest. You've done enough." He said it again. "You've done enough." I froze, looking at him. My son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father's death, the boy I'd worked 3 jobs to feed, who'd once promised me, "One day, I'll make you proud, Mom. You'll never have to lift a finger again." And now, years later, he said it like a dismissal, like I was an old photograph that no longer matched the frame. When the last car pulled away, and the laughter faded into the night, I stood by the window watching the snow fall. It was quiet, peaceful, but my heart was anything but. I turned toward the tree. Beneath it, a single envelope remained, tucked behind a branch. No name, just a small gold seal. I picked it up, Inside was a card. A Christmas card from Daniel and Mia. "Merry Christmas," it read. "With thought this year, instead of a gift, you'd appreciate simplicity. You always said you had everything you needed." My fingers tightened around the paper. Simplicity. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I had everything I needed. Except, apparently, a family who remembered who gave them everything they had. That night, as the clock struck midnight, I sat alone by the fire. A part of me wanted to cry, another part wanted to scream, but neither came. Instead, I reached for the small black notebook hidden in the drawer beside me. The one no one knew about. I opened it, flipping through page after page of figures, numbers, plans. My empire. My quiet creation built over years of hard work and quiet sacrifices. They thought I was just their old mother, sitting alone, forgotten, with nothing left but stories and sentiment. But they had no idea. No idea that the house they lived in, the company Daniel bragged about owning, the savings he flaunted, the properties they posed in. All of it, every last piece, was mine. Built by me. Owned by me. And now, sitting there with the fire reflecting in my eyes, I whispered into the silence. "You think I have everything I need. You're about to find out what that really means." The next morning, the world outside glittered under the snow, but inside me something had shifted. I no longer felt hurt. I felt awake. And by the next Christmas, they would remember this one. They would remember the night they gave everyone a gift but me. Because I was about to give them one they'd never forget. The morning after Christmas was strangely still. The world outside was wrapped in white silence, the kind that swallows sound and memory alike. I sat by the window with a cup of untouched coffee, growing cold in my hands, watching Daniel and Mia pack their car in the driveway. From where I sat, I could see their smiles, bright, practiced, hollow. They loaded up their luxury SUV with the gifts I'd paid for, under the roof I owned, with the money I'd earned. Daniel turned toward the house and waved. I didn't wave back. When they drove off, tire tracks carving twin scars in the snow, I felt something uncoil inside me. Not anger, not grief, something colder, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I'd spent my entire life giving time, money, love, everything. And somewhere along the way, I'd become invisible. My own son had looked me in the eyes last night and acted as if I were a relic, something to dust off once a year and store away again. He thought I was done, finished. He didn't know that I had quietly built an empire beneath the surface of ordinary life. A chain of businesses, investments, and properties I'd started when he was still a boy. After my husband's death, survival had become strategy. And strategy had turned into power, but I never flaunted it. I let them believe what they wanted. That I was just mom, content in retirement, with a pension and a modest savings account. That's what made this next part so delicious. I opened my black notebook again, the pages lined with numbers that told the real story of who I was. 7 rental properties across the city. A 42% stake in a tech firm Daniel used to brag about investing in. A private fund that had quietly multiplied over the years. And most of all, this house. The one Daniel had already started calling or family estate, as if his name were carved on the deed. Not yet, I thought. Not ever. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. "Good morning, Mrs. Lawrence," he said warmly. "How was your Christmas?" I smiled faintly. "Opening, Mr. Hughes. I need to make some changes to my estate plan." He hesitated. "Of course. May I ask?" "You'll see." I interrupted. "But one more thing. I want to set up a meeting with Daniel and his wife. Let's do it at my company office." "Next week?" "Your company office," he repeated, slightly confused. "Yes?" I said. "The one Daniel doesn't know exists." He chuckled softly, but I didn't. Over the next few days, I watched the world return to its routine. Stores reopening, lights coming down, the season's magic fading into memory. I wondered if Daniel even noticed I hadn't called. Usually, I'd check on him, ask if they made it home safe. But not this year. Instead, I spent the week preparing. I met with my accountant, reviewed the shares in my name, and arranged files neatly across my office desk. A sleek glass table in a downtown building that bore a name Daniel would recognize, Lawrence and Grant Holdings. He just didn't know his own mother was the Lawrence. For 15 years, I'd let my business partner, Grant, handle the public side of operations. He was younger, ambitious, and happy to let people assume he was the sole owner. It kept me out of the spotlight. But now I was ready to step back in. On the morning of the meeting, Daniel called unexpectedly. His name lit up my phone, and for a brief second, I felt that old pull of maternal hope. That maybe he'd call to apologize, to explain, to say, "Mom, I didn't mean to forget you." But when I answered, his voice was casual, almost distracted. "Hey, Mom. Just checking in. Everything okay after the holidays?" "Oh, I'm fine," I said evenly. "You sounded busy. How are things?" He hesitated. "Yeah, busy as usual. Actually, that's why I called. I might need a small favor. I'm finalizing a new business deal, but the bank's being slow with my liquidity. I was wondering if you could loan me, say $50,000, just for a few weeks." There it was, not an apology, not regret, a request. I closed my eyes for a second, smiling to myself. "Of course," I said smoothly. "But before that, I want to show you something. Meet me tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., downtown, Lawrence and Grant Holdings. Ask for me." He paused. "Wait, that's your office." "See you at 10, I said and hung up. The next morning, I arrived early. The glass building glimmered in the winter light, sharp and silent. I took the elevator to the top floor, the one with my name on the frosted door. Margaret Lawrence, founder and CEO. I hadn't sat in that chair for years. But today, it felt right. At exactly 10:07, Daniel and Mia walked in. He was in his tailored suit, she in a white coat that probably cost more than my first car. They looked every bit the part of the successful young couple. Confident, composed, entitled. "Mom?" Daniel said with a forced laugh. "This place is impressive. I didn't know you worked here." Mia looked around, her lips parting slightly. "You never told us you were still running a company." "I didn't think it mattered," I replied. "You both seemed busy." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, clearly thrown off. "So what's this about?" I gestured for them to sit. "You asked for a favor, Daniel. But before I consider helping, I want you to understand where my help comes from." I opened a drawer and placed a stack of documents on the table. Ownership certificates, property deeds, and bank statements with figures that made Maya's eyes widen. "Wet?" she said softly. "Are these yours?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Every single one." Daniel laughed nervously. "Mom, this must be some kind of joke. You mean to tell me you've been sitting on millions while pretending to live off your savings?" I tilted my head. "Pretending? I never said I was poor, Daniel. You just never asked." He swallowed hard, glancing down at the papers again. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to see who you were when you thought I had nothing left to give." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya shifted in her seat. "So this meeting is about testing us?" "No," I said quietly. "It's about reminding you." Daniel blinked. "Reminding me of what?" I leaned forward. "That everything you think you built, the company you brag about, the house you live in, the car you drive, they all started with my investments. I gave you seed money to start your own firm, remember? You said you'd pay me back one day." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but that was years ago and..." I cut him off. You never did. And yet, last night, you gave everyone in that room a gift except me. You forgot the hand that fed you, the one that carried you through your worst years. His jaw tightened. Mom, come on, it wasn't like that. We didn't forget you? Oak. I smiled coldly. You gave me a card that said I had everything I needed. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the hum of the office seemed to stop. Maya tried to soften the tension. Mrs. Lawrence, it wasn't meant that way. We just thought. You thought wrong? I said, standing. You thought I was finished. You thought I had nothing left but gratitude for the crumbs of your attention. You thought I'd sit quietly and fade into the background. Daniel stood too, his pride flickering through his panic. So what, Mom? You're what? Teaching me a lesson. I met his gaze. No, I'm reclaiming my place? He stared at me, uncertain, almost afraid to ask what that meant. Reclaiming your place, Mia repeated softly. What do you mean by that? I walked toward the window, looking down at the snow-covered city, the skyline of everything I had built, and everything they thought they owned. I said, turning slowly, starting today, things are going to change. You'll see soon enough. Daniel frowned. Change how? I smiled faintly, letting the tension stretch. I'm making some adjustments, to ownership, to trust funds, to everything. Mr. Hughes will send you the paperwork soon. Paperwork. Yes, I said. It's time to put names where they belong. The silence between us thickened. Maya's fingers tightened around her purse. Margaret, what exactly are you doing? I looked at her, calm, unwavering. I'm rewriting the story. And as I spoke, Daniel's phone buzzed on the table. He looked down, frowned, and paled. His company account had just frozen. He looked up at me, eyes wide. Mom, what did you do? I smiled, slow and deliberate. You wanted to know what it means to have everything you need. He stared, speechless. Well, I said softly, no, you'll find out what it's like when everything you need depends on the person you forgot. And before either of them could speak, I turned, walking past them toward the door. Behind me, I heard Daniel call out, voice trembling, no longer the confident son I'd raised, but a boy again. Mom, wait. But I didn't. I stepped into the elevator, the doors closing slowly between us. The last thing I saw was his reflection. Confused, furious, afraid. And for the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace, because the game had just begun. The moment the elevator doors closed, I exhaled. The air inside was warm, the hum of machinery faint beneath the rhythm of my heartbeat. For years, I'd been silent, smiling through disappointments, swallowing pride, letting my own son believe I was small. But now, silence had served its purpose. As the elevator descended, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned away, leaving only clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. When the doors opened, my assistant Clara was waiting. Everything go as planned, Mrs. Lawrence. I nodded. Better than expected. Let's make sure the transfer orders are processed by end of day. Every asset tied to Daniel's company, freeze it until further notice. She hesitated. All of them? All, I said firmly. And redirect any inquiries to legal. No exceptions. Yes, ma'am. I walked through the lobby, the sound of my heels echoing against marble. People greeted me with polite smiles, none realizing the storm I had just unleashed upstairs. Outside, the wind bit cold against my face. Snowflakes drifted down like tiny white secrets, each one landing softly on the world that was about to change. That evening, the phone began to ring. Again and again. Daniel. Then Mia. Then Daniel again. I didn't answer. But when the fifth call came through, I picked up. Yes. Mum, what the hell did you do? His voice cracked between panic and anger. My accounts? My company, everything's locked. The bank says there's an ownership dispute. What's going on? Calm down, Daniel. Calm down, he barked. Do you have any idea what this looks like? I've got investors calling me, my partners threatening to pull out. I cut him off. Daniel, do you remember when your father died? He faltered. What does that have to do with? Answer me. Yes, of course I remember. You were 10, I said quietly. I sold our house to pay for your schooling. Worked nights to keep us afloat. Every dollar I earned, I put into something bigger. So that one day, you'd have more than I did. And now, you stand there, surrounded by everything I built, acting like it was all yours. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had softened. Just a little. Mom, I didn't mean to forget you, I sighed. You didn't forget me, Daniel. You dismissed me. There's a difference? Please? He said, desperate now. If this is about Christmas, I'm sorry. I really am. It was Maya's idea. She thought you wouldn't want another gift cluttering up your house. It wasn't meant to hurt you. I almost believed him. Almost. But I remembered the look on Maya's face last night, the flicker of pride, the way she held his arm like a trophy. She wasn't just thoughtless. She was deliberate. I'm not punishing you, I said at last. I'm teaching you to see. See what? That everything you have is borrowed. Until you earn it. He was quiet, breathing hard. Mom, you can't just pull the rug out from under me like this. I can, I said. And I have. Then I hung up. Over the next few days, the fallout began. I received reports from my legal team. Daniel's business accounts were under review. His credit lines suspended pending verification of ownership. News of internal disputes leaked into the financial pages. Investors grew nervous. Mia, ever the image-conscious wife, began calling my sister Margaret, crying into the phone about how I was destroying their lives. Margaret came to see me 2 days later, bundled in her red coat, her eyes full of concern. You've made your point, Maggie. Don't you think that's enough? I poured her tea and said nothing. She leaned forward. Has your son? I know. He's terrified. He thinks you're cutting him out of everything. I'm not cutting him out, I said quietly. I'm giving him a chance to start from zero, to remember what it means to build. Margaret sighed. You sound just like Richard. At the mention of my late husband, I looked up sharply. She smiled sadly.